Hello investors, welcome to Simply Stocks. Companies have started announcing their June quarter results back to back. So in today's video, we will be covering 4 interesting small cap businesses whose results have been quite good. We will be studying their business models and their Q1 results, and also we will try to understand the risks inherent in those businesses. But yes, as a standard disclaimer, this video is in no way a buy or sell recommendation on any of these stocks. With that being said, let's get started. Now, the first business that we will discuss is Vintage Coffee and Beverages. Vintage is an FMCG stock, and as you might have guessed from the name itself, they manufacture and sell coffee. Vintage is a B2B player, meaning they mainly make coffee for other brands or other companies. In terms of sales, Vintage is quite well diversified. 34.5% of its sales come from Middle East and Africa, 23.5% from Russia and similar regions, 19.5% from Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia and such, and 13.5% of sales come from India. Now let's come to the results. In the months from April to June, that is Q1, their sales have increased by a massive 133% and net profit has grown by 213%. That means the profit has more or less tripled in value, and the profit growth is higher than sales growth. That means the business got good operating leverage. Operating leverage means that when your sales increase, your other expenses like salaries or factory rent, they don't rise at the same speed. In such cases, what happens is your profit growth comes out higher than sales growth. This operating leverage is an important parameter to filter good businesses. Now, Vintage Coffee is completely playing the game of distribution. On one hand, they have been increasing their coffee manufacturing capacity, and on the other hand, they have been acquiring new clients and new customers. Here you need to understand one more thing though, that the 130% sales growth that you are seeing in Q1 is coming off a low base from the previous year. Currently, they have a coffee production capacity of 6,500 metric tons per annum. Out of this 6,500, 2,000 tons capacity went live recently in 2025 only. So this sales growth has come due to expansion, but now they have reached 100% capacity utilization. So it's not like you will keep seeing sales doubling in the upcoming quarters as well. If you see here, in the previous quarters, sales were rising, but in the March and June quarter, sales have remained at about the same level because the company is running at 100% capacity utilization. So they simply cannot produce more than this. But then where will the growth come from in the future? Let's look at that. So Vintage is setting up an additional 4,500 metric tons manufacturing capacity, and their plan is to increase their production capacity by 70% by the end of this financial year, that is by March 2026. Their total capacity will increase from 6,500 metric tons to 11,000 metric tons. Then after this, for the next year, the company is already planning another capex. And this is something I really liked about Vintage. They will be raising funding of about 216 crore, which will be used to set up an additional 5,000 metric tons capacity. So currently, the company is at 6,500 tons. 4,500 tons will be added by March 2026. That makes it 11,000 tons. That's your 70% growth. On top of that, another 5,000 tons, that is 45% increase. Now, this plan will be completed by March 2027, and total capacity then will become 16,000 metric tons. So, we are seeing good 40 to 50% growth visibility in Vintage for the next 2 years. Apart from this, they have also started a 3,000 tons packaging line with which they will be focusing on retail or small consumer packs, which will become their B2C business. And the benefit of this is that profit margins will increase here. Till now, they have been selling coffee in bulk, and margins there are lower because they don't have their own brand. So they are basically doing contract manufacturing for other brands. Going forward, their target is that 25% of their export sales should come from consumer packs, that is small packs. So Vintage Coffee is a good high growth FMCG stock that you should keep an eye on. And their current CEO, C. Jawahar, has worked at Tata Coffee for 24 plus years. So the management is also quite good, quite experienced, and is growing the company well. Now let's look at valuation. Right now, this business might look expensive to you because it is trading at a PE of 38. But since this is a high growth stock, we will look at its forward PE. So their Q1 results were 102 crore. And since capacity utilization was 100% and no new capacity is coming until March 2026, the sales for other quarters will likely remain in the 100 to 110 crore range. So multiplying Q1 sales by 4, Vintage's estimated annual sales can be around 400 crore. Similarly, net profit or PAT is 14 crore multiplied by 4. it becomes 56 crore for FY26. And based on this, the new PE comes to about 30, which is a very good valuation for a 40 to 50% CAGR business. Risks here that you'll have to look out for is that the new coffee plant that the company is setting up, there should be no delay in getting it operational. Because you see, Vintage is already running at 100% capacity utilization. Sales growth will come through till December. But after that, further growth will happen only once this 4,500 metric tons plant goes operational. Then once the capacity goes live, we will have to track how quickly Vintage is able to ramp up sales and utilize this new capacity. And the third risk is that since coffee is a commodity, its prices can fluctuate, which can hurt the margins. So you will need to keep that in mind as well. Now let's move on to the second business, which is PNB Housing Finance. This is an NBFC and it is in the business of giving housing loans. They raise money from various sources and then they provide loans for home construction, renovation, land purchase, etc. Before jumping directly into the results, let's understand PNB's business. Otherwise, everything will just go over your head. So even home loans come in different sizes. Loans above 35 lakh are called prime and super prime. These are taken for buying big expensive homes or apartments in big cities. They are usually taken by big businessmen, professionals, and salaried individuals. Then loans below that with ticket size of around 25 lakh rupees are classified as emerging, and small loans up to 15 lakh rupees are called affordable housing loans. Affordable housing loans are mostly taken in small towns and villages where most of the customers are from middle class, lower middle class, and low income households. Now see, the lower you go down the pyramid, the higher the interest rate goes, because here the risk is higher for any bank or NBFC. That's why they also charge a higher interest rate from customers. This is because a lower middle class customer in a small town will have a weaker credit profile compared to a say CA or lawyer who is taking 40 to 50 lakh rupees home loan. In affordable housing segment, loan interest rates are 12 to 15%, but in the prime category home loans, the interest rate is just 9 to 10% and it can be even lower. To summarize here, in the affordable housing segment, the risk is higher, but if you manage the risk well and keep lending, then the margins here are also high. And the most important thing is that this segment is seeing very strong growth right now. Like the overall housing finance sector is growing at about 13 to 15% CAGR. But within housing finance, this affordable housing segment is growing annually at 21 to 23%. And the biggest reason behind this growth is the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, under which the government is giving home loans to middle class and low income families at subsidized rates. The Modi government has been actively working on this scheme since FY23, and in the past few years, as you can see here, the budget allocation for PMAY has also increased significantly. Now see, PNB fits into this very well. Till now, they have mostly focused on emerging and prime home loans that are more expensive home loans. If you see here, their total loan book is of 77,000 crore, out of which 71,000 crore is just emerging and prime loans. Loan book refers to the total amount you have given out as loans. But now their management is saying that going forward, they will be focusing on growing their affordable housing segment where margins are higher. Here you can see that since last year, they have seen 30 to 32% growth in the affordable and emerging segments. The overall loan book has increased quite well to 18% in 1 year. In affordable housing, they have loan book of around 5,744 crore right now, and their target is to grow this loan book in the affordable segment to 9,500 crore by the end of FY26, which will be 87% YOY growth in this segment of loan book. And as this affordable housing segment grows, we will see a good margin expansion happening at PNB. And apart from that, the overall loan book growth is also looking quite good. In the long run, they have a target to raise their ROE, which is currently at 12.4% to about 17 to 18%. Right now, the business is trading at a PB ratio of 1.7, which is a very good valuation. In banks and NBFCs, we look at price to book ratio or PB ratio and not the PE ratio. So I would put PNB Housing in the undervalued category. The business is heading in a good direction. Going forward in the upcoming quarters, we will need to keep an eye on the affordable housing loan book growth. Now, one risk here you need to be aware of is the risk of asset quality deterioration. This happens when the people to whom you have lent money start defaulting or are unable to pay their EMIs. Because when this happens, the NBFC's focus shifts completely from growth to recovery, and the growth completely stops or evaporates. So if you are interested in any NBFC like PNB or any other even bank, you will need to track this aspect very closely. Now, so far, if you are liking this video, do give me a thumbs up. Also, you can subscribe to our channel Simply Stocks, where we bring multiple such videos every week. Honestly, your likes and subscribes are our only motivation so that we keep bringing such high quality research to you for free. So do like this video and also subscribe to our channel as well. Let's come back to our discussion now. The third business we will study is a very niche and interesting one. It is also present in portfolios of 3 ace investors. The name of the company is Raghav Productivity Enhancers or RBEL, and if you check, it is in the portfolios of Rekha Jhunjhunwala, Utpal Seth and Mukul Agarwal. You may not have heard of Utpal Seth here, but he is also one of India's most accomplished and most respected investors. He had been working with Rakesh Jhunjhunwala since 2003, and after his death, Utpal Seth is the one who manages Rekha Ji's 90,000 crore rupees portfolio for her. In this company, the public shareholding is about 37%, out of which 13%, that is one third, is held by these ace investors only. Anyway, let's talk about the business. So this company makes a very critical or crucial product called silica ramming mass, which is used in the furnaces of steel factories. Steel is melted in furnaces, and inside those furnaces, a lining or coating of silica ramming mass is applied. Raghav has a production capacity of 288,000 metric tons of ramming mass per year. This sector is such that it has many small unorganized players who can only produce 10 to 15,000 tons per annum. On the other hand, Raghav Productivity's capacity is 20 times higher than these small players, which is why Tata Steel, Jindal and all big steel companies in the market are its customers. Raghav sales have grown 30% year on year, and because of operating leverage, net profit has grown 41%. Net profit margin has increased from 18.5 to 20%. But the risk with the Raghav is that the company neither holds conference calls with investors nor releases investor presentations. That is why it becomes very difficult to understand in which direction the business is headed. Besides this, the valuation of Raghav is also very high. So if you are interested in this business, you will have to keep that in mind as well. As for the growth triggers, if we talk about it, there is base demand coming from the steel sector. Plus, from the railways to defense, every sector is focusing on domestic manufacturing. So, there too, steel melting is required, which means demand will remain strong from those sectors as well. The fourth and final business, which announced very good results, is GSM Foils. GSM is a micro cap company and it makes these medicine strips for pharma companies. It is not a very fancy business. The model is very simple. These strips are made from aluminium. So, aluminium becomes GSM's raw material. This video has become a bit lengthy, I know. So, let's try to finish it quickly. GSM's current market cap is very low, around 250 crore. But one thing I really liked about GSM is that despite being at such a small base, its management is holding conference calls with investors and releasing investor presentations. When the Q4, that is March quarter ended, GSM's management gave a guidance of 200 to 250 crore in sales for this year. Last year, their sales were 134 crore. So this 200 to 250 crore top line guidance translates to a solid 50 to 85% sales growth for GSM. But when you look at the Q1 sales growth number, GSM sales have increased 148% year on year. This means management has beaten its guidance and delivered higher sales growth. EBITDA margin increased by around 1%, reaching 11.2%, and the bottom line, that is profit after tax, also jumped 180%, reaching 5.4 CR this quarter. Net profit margin was 7.4%. So looking at all this, we can say that business is seeing very good growth right now and it is moving in the right direction. Now let's quickly calculate GSM's valuation for both bull and bear cases based on this 50 to 85% guidance. You can see in this table last year net profit margin was 7.2% and net profit was 10 CR. For FY26 projections, we will use the EBITDA and net profit margins from Q1. So based on 50% sales growth, sales would be around 200 CR and net profit 15 CR. And if 85% sales growth happens, net profit could be around 19 to 20 CR. And we are just estimating based on the 85% guidance. Mind you, Q1 sales growth was 148%. So even though current PE is 25 to 26, based on this year's guidance, the 1 year forward PE becomes 17 in the bear case and 14 in the bull case, which is a very good valuation for such a fast growing business. Now, what are the risks in GSM that you must consider? First, the base is very small, so by itself, this business is risky. You will see that it moves only in circuits. Secondly, this is a low margin commodity business, which means GSM is not adding much value or innovation in its product. It is a basic product. In such cases, if aluminum prices rise, then margin pressure will become a big risk. And the third risk is cash flows. Here you will notice that it takes GSM up to 3 months to receive payments from its pharma clients to whom it supplies the strips, which means cash gets stuck in the business. Because you see, when you are doing business with big companies, the benefit is that you will get a lot of business, but on the negative side, pricing and payment terms are not very good. So that is a big risk in itself. And besides, the base is again very small. So that is something you'll have to keep in mind with respect to GSM. Now, in the end, you tell me in the comments which of these 4 stocks did you like the most. And if you didn't like the video earlier, I would request you to do it now. And while you are at it, you can also subscribe to our channel, Simply Stocks. Q1 result season has just started. So we will be covering and bringing many more videos in the near future. I'll see you in the next video. Happy investing.